Hey there, and welcome to another edition of the FanSaves Shop Local series. I'm your co-host, Chris McCarthy, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Sue Sutcliffe, who is the owner of the World Events Center. Hi, Sue. How are you doing today?
Hey, Chris, I'm wonderful. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So great to have you here today. Why don't you begin by telling everyone about the World Events Center?
Oh, well, the World Event Center is a solution to people not being able to gather in an authentic way. It was launched 17 days after the pandemic was announced. And really at that time, I knew what people were going to go through. I've been working remotely since 1995. So, and I had discovered this cool platform that wasn't quite ready to go, but it was ready enough for the pandemic. So we private labeled it, we started operating, and here we are a year later, and I'm loving every minute of it.
It's definitely the pandemic has definitely transformed and accelerated the digital transformation. And you being on the front lines of digital marketing and digital media, I'm sure you've seen that firsthand. Why don't you talk about the difference between like the start of the pandemic and to where we are current day, and what you've seen kind of in between happen?
Oh, you know what? I've seen a lot. And yeah, it's really interesting because when I first got on the internet in 93, nobody really knew what the internet was. In 1997, I spoke for the Oshawa Chamber. There was 200 people that rented the room to learn about the cyber world, and the World Wide Web. And I remember in 1997, I raised my hand and said, "How many people here have been on the internet?" And only 7 people raised their hand. And then fast forward, search engines came out, social media came out, and video conferencing came out. But the bandwidth, at least in Durham for sure, but a lot of places all over the world, the bandwidth didn't support video. And it's amazing when it comes down to it, like a pandemic, that all of a sudden now we need that bandwidth. So thank goodness it was just in time technology. The bandwidth came for most of us. I mean, not everybody can do high speed, the high speed, they can't handle it. So the Ontario government, the Canadian governments, actually governments all over the world are working towards getting everyone wired up so we can. But in the last year specifically, I've seen wonderful things. I've seen a lot of tragedy. I think we all have, but I like to stay on the positive side of things. And I've seen people come together to create shows. I've seen a lot of collaboration, and I think that's amazing. I think everything is better with two, and or two or more. So that's kind of cool. I've seen people getting very, very much more professional about the whole thing. It used to be a stigma. I remember when I started my business in 1992. It was called the Durham Home and Small Business Association. It doesn't exist anymore, but there was kind of a stigma to being working from home. It was almost like you were less than. And now, it's the thing, right? We don't really have to be anywhere, and we just need to be able to work, right? And I think that's wonderful. I think we're kind of coming full circle. So now, I mean, it's been a challenge for so many, right? Trying to work with children, with spouses. But I think overall, we're just evolving as humans, and we're coming into, well, I shouldn't say that. I think there's two types of humans right now. Okay, and I'm sounding a little bit geeky, but I'm a little bit geeky. I think there's people that are still mourning what they don't have, and then there's people that are starting to get excited about what they do have. And I think you can probably guess which camp I'm in.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
right there
it's
with
not,
you.
yeah, yeah. And I think, we have to evolve as humans. And right now I'm focusing a lot of time on developing systems and events to bring fun into our lives. I mean, okay, so we can't get out, but that doesn't mean we can't get together and play euchre at lunch, right? It doesn't mean we can't do things. So I think we're just, I'm kind of excited. I'm a kind of a change agent, so I like the idea of solving problems, and that's what I've done since the beginning. And honestly, you see the leaders come out. You see people that are facing it on. A lot of people are playing for the gold, right? They have everything on the game. and it's bringing out the most beautiful thing in people, and that's kind of nice to see. So
we were talking a little bit about before the feature about our, a couple of our employees, and our employees are spread across Ontario, and no longer have to come into the office. Had we still had the office, we might not have been able to acquire them as employees. So definitely silver linings. Another one is we're a part of an accelerator in Europe, and like we have virtual events like every week. At the start of the pandemic, that wasn't really possible or something that was doable. So definitely some silver linings and some good things that have come out of this whole experience, offsetting a bit of the bad for sure. Now, you're somewhat of a pioneer, I would say, in digital marketing in Canada. You've spoken at hundreds of conferences and events across the world. Are there any themes of your talks that have stayed true from when you first started to present day?
I think it's all about engagement. I mean, it's always been about engagement. You know, a lot of times people will go about doing things in the same way all the time. And I think honestly, just like, that old harvest gold furniture that our grandparents used to have doesn't work anymore. I think we have to evolve our strategies. But the one thing that that has stayed true is innovation, and um, about constantly changing, constantly adopting to what your customers want. If you've been following me for any given time, you've seen me on a rampage every Black Friday saying to everybody, 65% of our dollars are going to the States this weekend because Canadian retailers aren't ready to market. And a lot of retailers didn't want to adjust. They didn't want to change. And it was hard. They've done it for generations, a lot of them. But we have to evolve. We have to get that engagement in. We have to serve the customer. And I really feel like if we look at any of the trends that have kind of amplified since the internet came out, it's all been about personalization and making it easy for people. There's really only two things people ever want when they go to the internet, and that is to be entertained or solve a problem. And I mean, if you think about it, that's all that humans really want anyways, right? Like we work because we want to, unless you're like me and you love your job, but I mean, we work to make money so we can have joy, we can have entertainment, so we can avoid the pain of having bills. I think it's just kind of now going at a hyper speed, but it's been a trend right from the beginning. It's just that people aren't necessarily watching it, you know? Um, and really it comes down to marketing, because if you think about it, back in the day, and I mean, I started marketing when I was 19. I don't know anything else. I mean, that is my thing. Um, and the biggest problem I've seen right through my whole career has been people trying to sell what they sell versus trying to solve a problem. And that's a really bad trend that's still continuing. And so now we have the internet, and people really, I mean, this pandemic, the one thing that it's totally done is it's made everybody global. So now your competition, there's never been more competition for every single business out there. So how do you win? You engage people, you find out what they want, and you solve their problems. And that's the only way you win, right? Yeah, like, and that, and of course, creating raving fans that spread the good word. But I think it's all about engagement. You have to have that conversation. It's got to be a two-way street. Conversations aren't easy, but they're necessary. I cannot read your mind, and they still don't have technology to make that happen.
Yeah. Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe.
I think we're really living like crossing the chasm. You picture that graph with like the chasm in the middle, and people like yourself were the early adopters. And then, halfway through the pandemic, it was evident that people needed to go digital with their website or their marketing if they hadn't done so already. And now the people that have not caught up and done so are the laggards that we're still seeing. So it's great that you've been able to help so many businesses digitalize their companies and be able to reach more new customers. If you could speak to any of your current loyal customers and you had a chance to speak to them, what would you want to say to them?
Thank you. I have amazing customers, and not just customers. I mean, I think really, we are in a good place here in Canada. We are really well positioned for growth and not to get discouraged. Like, if you look at all the leaders in the world, the big ones, the ones that we look up to now, they failed. There's been failures, and you know, failures are hard, and they're embarrassing, and they're hard at, like, but we have to get past that and just realize it's the lesson, right? You take the lesson from that and then you go on. And I think it was Dan Sullivan, I'm going to give this one to, but he had a video out that had a real gem for me, because I've had a lot of successes, I've had a lot of failures as well. And one of the videos he had really was brilliant. I think he's brilliant, period. But um, he talked about someone that has gone through and they failed. And I think when you have a business, it's like a baby. So when it fails, it's like, ah. But he said, when your business fails and you're starting a new one, you're not starting at the same point as you were before, because you're a lot smarter than you, as long as you learn from the lessons.
Yeah.
So the second business, the third business, I mean, they just get better and better because you're smarter. And so don't give up. Don't, if one thing doesn't work, don't, abandon it, try something new. It's always, it's always a risk. It's a risk trying something new. I mean, start an event center. I had never really, I mean, I guess in the past I've done a fair amount of events, but that was it just was a problem. It was something I wanted to see. I wanted to create solutions, and really there's nothing like World Event Center. I mean, you've been on it, so it feels different, and people need to connect like that way. So it was a problem that was required, that people needed a solution to. When I looked at what my gifts are and where I really get juiced up about working, it was a natural for me. And I feel like, okay, here's another tidbit I think is really important. I don't think there's ever been a better time to start a business than right now. I don't think you need a lot of money. I think it's great if you have money. You can blow a lot of money too, but there's never been a better time to start a business. And so maybe my biggest piece of advice would be, look at what your gifts are. Like, and if you don't know what they are, ask your friends, and think about what juices you up about getting up in the morning and what you really enjoy doing. Because, if you have to sleep 8 hours a day, no, I don't know any entrepreneurs that do, but anyways, then you're really working half your life. And if you're going to work half your life, why not enjoy it? And then you don't have to work at all.
Totally. Live on your terms, for sure. I totally agree with that. And I love your fail forward philosophy, and not being afraid to make mistakes because you learn from those mistakes. It's so true. I can definitely relate to that. My mom actually just started her own Shopify store, and she's selling antiques, collectibles, and unique finds. And she worked at, an auction house for years. And prior to that, she worked in warehousing and retail, and she hated it. And she worked such a hard life. And now she's so happy, being able to sell things online and acquire other items, and it makes her really happy. So that's an example of a 57-year-old woman. Oh, I hope she doesn't see this. She'll get mad at me for saying that. But that, had no experience in starting a business, and exactly like you said, turned her passion into something that she can live and enjoy every day. So really, really great points there. If someone wanted to learn more about World Event Center, where could they go to find out more information?
Okay, well, that's easy. worldeventcenter.com. Or you can type Sue Sutcliffe in any search engine. You'll find me, and I link all roads lead to World Event Center. So thank you so much.
Amazing. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to tell us more about World Event Center. And to those watching, be sure to subscribe below. And remember, you can all be the real MVP when you support local. Thanks so much, Steve.